Hi, this is Brian Boyd. I'm Vice President of Business Development at Predictive Technologies. Today we are going to do a 1-hour webinar on real-time access to real-time information around Oracle 11g Golden Gate. Today on the presentation we have Weiss Ayube, an Oracle Senior Solution Architect, and Nick Wagner, an Oracle Data Integration Product Manager. On the call, it will be on mute during the presentation. In the QA section, you can hit *1 to ask a question, and you'll be dropped into a queue. And you may also ask questions via instant messenger chat on the right side during the call as well. Next slide. So today's agenda, we're going to do a quick overview of PTi as a Golden Gate specialized partner. We're then going to have Weiss talk about Golden Gate business solutions and architectural overview. We're then going to do a real-time access to real-time information demonstration. We're then going to talk to a customer use case example, and then a slide on other resources and backup information that you can go to as a future reference. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. Next slide. So Predictive Technologies is an Oracle Platinum partner founded in Southern California in 2001. PTi is one of a few Oracle Golden Gate specialized partners in North America with practical in-the-trenches implementation experience with the product. Our primary business solutions include technology enablement professional services. This includes project-by-project consulting, database and middleware installations, high availability, upgrades, Unix administration, health checks, as well as Golden Gate deployments, to name a few. We also provide managed services for customers. This means we manage Oracle Unix middleware infrastructure around operational management so customers can focus on strategic business tasks, thus offloading their day-to-day SLA, backup, performance management, and weekend and nighttime activities to PTi. Lastly, we're an Oracle technology reseller. This includes all Oracle technology products, including Oracle Database Middleware, Oracle Linux OVM, Oracle Database Appliance, and various other Oracle hardware and storage solutions. Below are a list of some of our reference customers that we've had for many, many years. I'm now going to pass the presentation to Weiss Ayube, the Oracle Senior Solutions Architect for Golden Gate Business Solutions Overview. Thanks. Go ahead.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to finish the presentation in about 15 minutes so I can spend another 15 minutes on a demonstration. So I'll go through these slides pretty quickly. So first and foremost, what is Golden Gate? If you look at some of the Oracle marketing material, it may confuse you a bit just because Golden Gate is so flexible. There's a lot of sort of business solutions where it fits in. But the core of the product, Golden Gate, is basically a CDC or change data capture solution, or you could call it a database replication solution. So essentially, Golden Gate captures, routes, transforms, and delivers transactional data in real time. And the beauty of it, it works across heterogeneous environments. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it's very low impact and it preserves transaction integrity. So I guess the key differentiators of our technology are that we provide data in real time, even with large data volumes, and we have a lot of customers that are using quite a large data volumes. Giga redo logs a minute is something that we can do with Oracle Golden Gate. As I mentioned before, it works in heterogeneous environments and maintains the commit boundaries of each transaction during the movement of transaction. Sub-second latency, even with thousands of transactions per second. So this notion of real time, especially in data warehouse environments, is starting to become, typical conversations between me and my customers. And this heterogeneity and modular architecture that I'll talk about a little later will give you a good understanding of how Golden Gate differs from other database replication products. All right, so now that you have an understanding of what Golden Gate is, let's take a look at some of the value propositions for Oracle Golden Gate. There are a lot more value props for this product that just besides what is on the screen, but these are some of the typical ones that we see from our customers. First, delivers continuous operations. Basically, because we are a heterogeneous product and we can replicate between operating system and databases, we've seen customers use this solution to eliminate unplanned outages and almost eliminate the cost and sort of planned outages. So that the notion here is that you can have your data in multiple databases in an active solution. So things like patches or operating system upgrades and all those things can be done in zero downtime. Lower IT costs, again, because we are heterogeneous, we support multiple platforms. So typically your IT department, they don't have to learn different replication solutions. So if you have IBM, Oracle, SQL Server, whatever your requirements are for replication, whether you're using it for high availability, disaster recovery, or the 5 or 10 other different ways you can use database replication, you can use Golden Gate for all those needs. Improve efficiencies through improved performance. So, we're very performant, and I'll talk about that when I go into the architecture. It's easily scalable, and, this real-time feeds of data, meaning as soon as transactions are committed, it's being sent over to the target database or databases. So that improves things quite a bit in the IT tier. Reduce risk. As I mentioned before, we maintain the commit boundaries. This is something big in replication, is that if something were to happen, where do you go to find this data, and how do you start the process back again and not lose any data? We're very good at doing that. Improves business insight. Again, this is really starting to become important. I joke around with my colleagues here saying that 2012 is going to be the year of data warehouse, and that's because I see a lot of our customers looking at business insight, right? They have all this data, and what do you do with this data, and how do you get it in real time? Golden Gate plays a crucial part in that. Also, reduce barriers to sharing data. Golden Gate is run at the database level. It is completely transparent to the application. We don't do anything with the application. The application runs like it should run. So bring it into the Golden Gate. In most cases, you're not doing anything to the application, and that basically reduces the barrier to sharing that data across different databases, different applications. Okay, so quickly, some of the business drivers for replication. These 6 I see quite often. There are a few more, but I'll go through this real quickly. You have a source database here, and you want this data, the same schema or some part of that database into this target database. It could be for reporting. It could be for disaster recovery. It could be for high availability. Many, many different ways we can do this. And this is becoming more important, right? This live standby or migration upgrades. Most of our databases are starting to become business critical. Maybe it wasn't in the past, but now it is. And you can't afford any downtime, zero downtime whatsoever. So how do you do this? Golden Gate offers that solution where you can have a zero downtime upgrade on database, operating system, even applications. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Load balancing, so you have a database here. You need additional performance. Instead of ripping and replacing, you just add another database, and you kind of go in this round-robin fashion. Data distribution, we see this quite a bit in retail, especially in grocery store chains, where you have a database here, and you need that data in multiple locations, maybe some price changes and things of that nature. Golden Gate can do that in real time. And then on the reverse side, data warehouse, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with this. You have multiple sources. Maybe these are, different types of databases, Oracle, SQL Server, IBM, whatever they are, we can extract and bring that data into a data warehouse. And then Data Mart is sort of a cascade. Here's your production. You bring that data into a second database, and from here you kind of do the data distribution. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the product here. All right, Golden Gate. So Golden Gate differs because we have this modular architecture. We have different modules that handle a specific purpose in the replication as a whole. And I'll talk about each one of these, and you can see how that actual transportation mechanism is done via Golden Gate. So in the source, we have this capture file. The Golden Gate capture module or file reads data transactions as they're occurring. So by reading the native transaction logs, typically the redo logs, Golden Gate only moves changed committed transaction data, which is a small percent of all your transaction, right? So it's very, very performant. And Golden Gate has its own buffer in the capture module where transactions are kept and tracked. So it doesn't do anything until it sees a commit from the database. Once it sees a commit, then it says, okay, this is data that's been committed, and now I need to go ahead and send it into the next module, which is the source trail file. I'll talk about that in a minute. A little bit more about the capture file. A Golden Gate capture file, we don't use, there's no tables and triggers created by Golden Gate at all. So again, it's very performant. Golden Gate is not an ETL tool, but we can do a lot of simple transformations that typically are associated with an ETL process, like going from one table to two tables, adding a column, et cetera, et cetera. Also, Golden Gate can capture XML, LOB, spatial, UDT, cluster tables, if you have rack, ASM, very flexible as far as what we can capture from that source database. Now, the source trail file. Now, this is sort of the secret sauce of Golden Gate. The trail file is written in a universal data format that all databases can understand. Now, because of this proprietary binary file, Golden Gate does not care who the database or the OS vendor is, right? So if it's a source database, and let's say that's Oracle, you capture it and you bring it into the source file, then it transforms to this universal data format. There's a couple of advantages of this. One, that's how we can be heterogeneous. Second, when that data is brought into the source trail file and it's changed to this universal format, it actually reduces the size of the file. So there's less data going across than what is captured in most scenarios. Okay, so the third module is a pump. This is different from Oracle, the data pump. This is just a pump process, which Golden Gate it takes the data and simply pushes the data across via TCP/IP. The pump process can send data to a database. It can send data to flat file JMS devices. So that's another differentiator for us. Now, this source has to be a database, and we'll talk about and show you a slide on all of the certified databases. But the pump process can deliver data to, flat file JMS device or another database going across. You can also do column mappings in the pump process as well, sort of from one database to another. Mapping is recommended to be done on the target database. You want to put as little performance hit on the production as possible, but it can be done in the source database if you like. One important thing to note that is Golden Gate has two small files that gets loaded in your source and target database server. So, this is so light that the typical recommendation is that you install it on your database server, and it uses just a small percentage of the CPU and memory on each of those two servers, and that's typically the normal recommendation for the installation of Golden Gate. Okay, so on the target side, you have the target trail file, which is exactly the same as the source trail file, except it takes the data in here and transforms it into a language that the target database can understand. And then it takes this data and hands it over to the delivery process. And the delivery process is nothing but a user writing statements into that target database. Now, capture, pump, delivery, all of these files save a position to a checkpoint file so that they can recover in case of a failure. all processors are in constant communication. So if the network goes down or if there's a particular problem in one of these modules, it doesn't shut down the whole replication process. So if there's a problem here, let's say in the SAN replication, the capture module keeps running, keeps capturing, and all this process, everything else on here and here keeps going, except you have a termination on the network, and as soon as that comes up, you can start your replication process again. And if you want to go bidirectional, basically you set up the same capture, source, target trail file in reverse and go in a active-active configuration mode. So here is the latest on what is certified with Oracle Golden Gate. As you can see, most of the RDBMSs that are out there are certified with Golden Gate. And this is the capture module. On the delivery, which is the target, we have everything plus a few more that we have added. And this keeps changing. We constantly add additional databases. And then operating system, similar. Most of the operating systems that are in the market that are used in organizations are covered. Okay. So in the demonstration, what I would like to do is basically show you guys a few things that Golden Gate can do. First, let's go over the environment. Source is a Siebel 7.8. This is a CRM application from Oracle. The application itself is not that important, but I wanted to show you that where you're going from one version of Siebel to another version of Siebel. The first version, 7.8, is on Windows SQL Server, and the target is on Linux Oracle 11G. So a lot going on over there. In this environment, first I'm going to show you guys that the replication of data in a heterogeneous environment. So I'm going to create an account and source and see that that account actually moves over to that target, and basically cross database, cross platform, in one way and back in reverse. The second part, I'd like to show you guys some of the mapping and transformation capabilities that we can build into the replication process itself, right? So as I was talking about earlier, where you can do some simple transformations, I'll show that in the demo. All right, let me go ahead and share my desktop. Okay. So hopefully you guys can see all this. As you can see, this is a live environment. This is from our data center. It's not something in my laptop or a toy box here, but this is a live environment. And then I'll show you guys here that this is the Siebel 7.8, Siebel 7.8 on Windows. And then our target is a Siebel 8.1 on Linux. Okay. So first, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an account on the source Siebel application that does not exist on source and target, and see if that replicates over. Okay. So I'm gonna go into the Accounts tab here, and then Account List, and then I'm gonna see if, let's just call it Oracle. And I just want to make sure that this account does not exist. As you can see, it does not exist. And I'll do the same thing on target here. Okay. The account we're going to create is going to be called Oracle, and it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create this account, Oracle. Let's just say site is San Francisco, and phone number is 510 378-1111. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. Now basically what I did is just create an account in this application, and this account did not exist before in either one of these applications. So in source I created this. We're going to go to target, and we're going to see if this replicated over. All right, so as you can see, it did get replicated over, and this basically is just a quick way of showing you that you can replicate in a heterogeneous environment, a complete heterogeneous environment, going from SQL Server to Oracle, and so on and so forth. So the second part, what I mentioned is I want to show you the reverse direction, and the simplest way to do that is just change this phone number on the target application. So now I'm on target, which is on Oracle Linux, and let's just change this to, let's go to Lucky Sevens, RK Sevens, and then we're going to go ahead and save it. Okay, so now if you see, this was the old phone number. We changed it here to 777, and then we're going to go ahead and refresh this on source. Okay, and then that was able to successfully transmit that in reverse direction and update this. Okay, so the second part of this demo, what I'd like to show you guys is some of the transformation capabilities that we have built into Oracle Golden Gate. And to do that, I'm going to look at this this file over here. This is basically a this is an upgrade script. Let me go back out so you can see this. So what I was telling you guys earlier about the different modules, these are the different modules. Fortunately, we don't have time to take a look at each one of these, but what I'm drilling into is this pre-scheme file, which is a Siebel upgrade script. So for some reason, when Siebel went from 7.8 to 8.1, there were some changes made, and Golden Gate can actually embed those changes into the replication. So this Siebel upgrade script is a major upgrade process. As you can see, it's mostly SQL statements. Most are updates and inserts that move data around in different tables and change values of certain tables, columns. The one we're going to look at is statement 210 and 320. So it's 210. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at this real quick and examine this. If you can see the SQL, it's basically an update statement to the SOpti table, and it says set Opti CD column to design opportunity where Opti CD column is design registration. So essentially, what it's saying is in the source, if it's design registration in the target, that should automatically be changed to design opportunity. So this is already written into the Golden Gate trail file, and let's go ahead and take a look and see how that works. Now, the Opti CD column in the database is the type column in this application. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and create an opportunity under this account, and we're going to go to the type column. So bear with me here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down on the account that we just created, which was Oracle. I'm going to go to the Opportunity tab. And it's thinking of going into the Opportunity tab. While it's doing that, I'm going to go on the source to Opportunity and get that ready. All right, so there we go. That's ready. And what we're going to do is what we're going to do is we're going to look to see if the opportunity that we're going to create under the account is already there. So we're going to look. I'm going to create an opportunity called Oracle.opty, and that doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and create that. Oracle.opty. As you can see, that is part of this account, the Oracle account we created earlier. Let's put some value in this. Let's say this opportunity is worth, I don't know, $50. And then let's say the percentage is 15%. Okay. Let's go ahead and save this. Save record. So just create an opportunity under the Oracle account. And then we're going to go to Opportunity tab, and then Opportunity list. Opportunity tab, Opportunity list. All right. So as I was talking to you guys earlier, let me go ahead and bring this back up. Now this opportunity CD column is this type column in the application itself. So what basically we're saying is in the target, if this column is design opportunity, then on source that should be changed to design registration. Excuse me, if it's on the source of design registration, target should be design opportunity. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the source to design registration. And we're going to go ahead and save this. So source is design registration, and target automatically changed to design opportunity. You see how fast that was? I didn't even have to refresh the target. It just automatically sent that across, and everything carried over 15%, and revenues $10. So that's basically a one-to-one relationship as far as building a statement into the replication process. The second one I would like to look at is statement 320. I think that's what I said. Let's take a look at statement 320. Okay, where did it go? Let's do that again. All right, there it is. Okay, so let's take a look at this. All right, statement 320 is also an update to the SOPT table, and basically it says set PR department OU ID to null where opportunity CD is design project. So if source is design project, then set the PR department OU ID to null. So the PR department OU ID is the primary account ID on the database and the application. So basically what we're saying is the primary account set, if on source the column is design project, then on target null out that primary account ID. Essentially what we're doing is that if a user is making an update on the source by setting the optcd column to design project, after the upgrade, Siebel will deassociate that opportunity with the account. So by setting up the primary account ID to null, essentially the Siebel application deassociates the opportunity to the account that I just created. So let's take a look and see how that's going to work. All right, so let's go back to our opportunity list. Okay, so this type, remember, we want to change it to design project. And that's design project. I'm going to go ahead and save this, save record. Now remember, design project over here, what it's going to do to the target is it's basically going to get rid of this account. It's going to deassociate this account with this opportunity. So the primary account and then also the account here should disappear when I refresh this. Okay, let's go do that. All right, so as you can see, this opportunity is no longer associated with an account. Okay. Now this basically shows you that Golden Gate can do, one-to-one, one-to-many transformation, and this is great because typically you'd have to do a batch job on a nightly basis if you had something like this. Although it's a simple transformation, there are many more complicated ones that Oracle Golden Gate can do. But this is sort of what I wanted to show you guys and kind of get you an idea of what are possible with Oracle Golden Gate. Okay, let me go ahead and go back to our presentation here, and then I'll hand this over back to Brian.
Thanks, Weiss. We're going to review a customer use case example here. I can't use the company name because I don't have, they don't use names, but it's a publicly traded mid-market oil company since 1987. In the customer use case example, the problem was in 2005 it was taking 1 hour nightly batch process to refresh the data to a second system for reporting, and they were doing a complete copy of their database schema. And then by 2011, this process had grown to 8 hours daily because of the large amount of data that they were trying to move over, which basically restricted business users' ability to query the data normally. This led to a lot of stale data being used for reporting when management desired more real-time access to information without negatively impacting business users. Next slide. So the solution need, we talk to the customer, we listen to their problem and the business desire to kind of gain these 4 areas, which were real-time access to real-time info. They wanted separate access to only information required on reporting and not the entire ERP data model. They also wanted the ability to tune and optimize queries in separate data mart to speed up queries for business users. They couldn't do this because they were copying over the entire eBiz schema, which is pre-tuned, and you can't do a lot of tuning to it. And then the last part was they wanted to offload all reporting off production systems with little or no overhead impact. Next slide. So the solution, PTi implemented Oracle 11g Golden Gate from a source system on a 10.204 Oracle database on eBusiness Suite 11.5.10 to a target system on Oracle 11.2 database. The real-time access to real-time info was completed after a few weeks of implementation of Golden Gate. PTi was able to remove selective tables and data to the new data mart, eliminating the need for the entire ERP data model refresh for reporting. And we enabled tuning and index optimization strategies to gain a magnitude of impact improvement of queries for real-time for business users. Next slide. So this template is sort of a before and after template. In terms of information access, before there was a large delay. After the Golden Gate implementation, it was real time, effectively a day faster. One major query length that had been 18 minutes on reporting, and after we tuned it, we got it down to 2.5 minutes, over 600% faster. The average query length had been 4 minutes, and we got it down to sub 1 minute time, which is over 300% faster. And probably as critically important as some of these, speed improvements was that, before they didn't have reporting, they weren't allowed to do any reporting at night for the ERP refresh because of the overhead. And after, there was no limitations. What does this lead? Business user community productivity gains. And again, this ties into the whole message of, it's not just particular one need, but it solved a few different business solution needs for the customer. Next slide. So we're getting down toward the end here. This slide is additional resources. There's a link for Golden Gate white papers. There's also a URL link for our company and around data integration that we help people with around Golden Gate and being a specialized partner. There's a download link of the software. And there are also just a listing. We're probably going to be doing quite a few more Golden Gate rehash of this event just because we've had a really good turnout and high interest. And we'll also be doing a webinar on Oracle Database Appliance in the 3rd week in April as well. Lastly, anybody that had signed up on the landing pad for the registration will be sending a follow-up email with a URL of the webinar so that you can replay it or pass it to management for education purposes. Next slide. So here's PTi and our contact information. You can contact me directly, and I can delegate you to the right person to talk to. If you want to discuss your interest in Golden Gate further around a particular business problem, that kind of goes back to some of Weiss's original 6 use case slides, or 6 use cases, where a lot of people have different needs, and you want to talk about one of them. You want to go under the covers, do a deeper dive. You think that it may help, but there's still an obstacle, or you want us to implement it for you, please contact us, and we'd be happy to talk to you about a free consultation about how to make it work, architect it, and make it a good solution for your particular lead. Next slide. So lastly, I'm going to open this up for Q&A. To ask a question, you can hit *1. And Nick Wagner of Oracle Data Integration Product Management will answer your questions in order. And we look forward to your participation in this section. That typically makes these events most useful, because sometimes people have questions but they don't ask them. So I'm going to pass it to Nick, and we'll take the first question.
Oh, that was great, guys. Thank you so much for your time. There were some questions on the chat. If you can't access the chat, or if you want to, you can click on the chat portion of your WebEx Center, and you'll be able to enter a question, and we'll be able to read it and answer for you. The first one that's in there is, can I use the Golden Gate licenses for multiple purposes? For example, I have licensed a source and target by the number of CPUs. Can I use it for DR, live reporting, upgrades, multi-master replication? And the answer is yes, you can use it for anything. Golden Gate is licensed by the CPU, not by the actual project or a solution you're looking to solve. Another question came from Sami is, can Golden Gate replicate real-time data from Oracle 10G on Oracle Linux to MySQL on on Red Hat Linux? And the answer is yes. Golden Gate is truly heterogeneous, so you can YS showed a slide that had a number of different sources and targets, and that included things like SQL Server, Sybase, DB2, Oracle. And Golden Gate is fully heterogeneous, so we can replicate between any two of those databases or any combination of those databases, sources, or targets. And Golden Gate does have the flexibility to decide exactly which records and which columns to replicate, and even which tables to replicate between those systems. And that's all configured within the parameter files. Any other questions?
At this time, there are no audio questions.
Okay. We have another in the chat. The question was, can the delivery process have multiple applications or applies? And the answer is kind of. As you configure your target environment, you can actually set up multiple delivery processes, and that would be a way to scale to meet the needs of the source system or to meet the bandwidth capabilities of the system. So a single replicat or a single delivery process can usually handle anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 records a second. So if you've got more than that, you can just set up multiple replicats. Each one would have a subset of tables similar to an Oracle Advanced replication group. Or you could use a parameter within Golden Gate called range. And the range parameter allows you to select like a primary key, and then we'll do a hash on that key, and then you can specify the number of ranges, and then you just split up the number of ranges into each replicat. Another question we have in here, is Golden Gate able to replicate stored procedures between two different databases? For example, if the source is DB2 and the target is Oracle. The answer to that is no. For DDL replication, we only replicate from Oracle to Oracle and Teradata to Teradata. So if you have a package or a stored procedure in Oracle 9i and you want to replicate it to 11G, that's no problem. Or Teradata to Teradata, that's fine too. But we don't do cross-platform DDL. This is good. We're getting a lot of questions. Another one is, how are Oracle deferred constraints handled when using other target databases such as SQL Server? That's something that we're not able to solve at the moment. In that case, what we usually recommend to customers is to disable the foreign key constraints on the target side, or to disable the integrity constraint, depending on what kind of constraint you're deferring. That does make it quite a bit more complicated in that case. For Oracle to Oracle, we are configured to defer constraints, even referential integrity constraints, check constraints, and everything until the commit point. But SQL Server doesn't really have that functionality. Another question is, are there any limitations on data types, such as spatial, XML, things like that? Well, there are some data type limitations per each database, and it really depends on what's logged in the ready logs or in the transaction logs for each database. The real place to go to get that information would be the documentation. There's a separate install guide for each of the databases that we support. For Oracle, The data type limitations are row ID. Row ID is just really a physical location of a record in a data file or in a database. When we go to insert, update, or delete that record on the target, it may have a different physical location within that same data file, and so the row ID is going to be different. It's not really something that replicates logically very well. And then the other limitation for data types in Oracle is any data types. And that's primarily seen in the AQ objects or Oracle Advanced Q objects, so we can't replicate those yet. Another question, if I'm simply going between two existing databases, how does it compare with materialized views, which can replicate data pretty quickly? If you're going between, in that case, materialized views can be used to do replication, but you're using database links and things like that. There's a number of inherent issues when using database links across databases. First off, the data is only sent during refreshes. If those material views get very large, there's a company out there that makes a bunch of tablets and phones, and right now they're using Golden Gate to migrate off of their materialized view replication environment into a Golden Gate environment. And the reason why is because it would take so long to refresh these materialized views, and as they were used more and more on the target and the reporting was done off of them, it just seemed to slow them down to a point where they would start crashing. And so with Golden Gate, because that target system is completely open and available, it gets rid of any of those issues. And Golden Gate is a very good solution to replace materialized views. Is there a way to seamlessly fail over from another database using Golden Gate if the production database fails? Seamlessly fail over, because the target system is already up and running, all you need to do is point your users to the target system if the production system fails. There's a number of solutions that do that, and it's kind of outside of the Golden Gate realm. That would really be something like Big IP from F5 Networks. They have like an intelligent switching solution that if the system is down, it'll automatically point users at the other system. There's a number of products out there that do that. There was a product I reviewed a while ago called, or a company called Resonate that had a product similar to that. Cisco's got a router that'll do the same thing, and it's really at the router level. Because the Golden Gate target database is completely open and available, you can switch your users to it any time. It's just a matter of actually pointing them over there and getting the data over there. Another question is, if there's a network failure, does Golden Gate automatically restart? And the answer is yes. There's an auto restart parameter within the product that you can set up, and that will automatically restart and rebuild the process if such things as the network were to go down, or the database can go down, a listener goes down, or whatever the problem is. Golden Gate will try to restart itself automatically a number of times, and it'll pause between each time. Another question is, how does Golden Gate compare to Oracle Streams? Streams is a pretty decent product. However, if you've ever implemented it, that looks like you have in this case, you've already got it set up in your environment, you notice that if something crashes or something goes down in Streams, or all of a sudden it's not replicating data, it's very difficult to troubleshoot that issue. With Golden Gate, because the entire product is decoupled, so the capture process is separate from the process that sends the data over the network, which is separate from the process that applies it, if one of those were to crash, you know exactly the process that crashed, you know exactly where it is, and we have a nice alert log or error log that actually tells you what crashed, why it crashed, and you get an error information very similar to an Oracle database error that tells you what you can do to help fix it. And so within Golden Gate, the biggest thing that we get is that it's faster than Streams. It's a lot easier to maintain, and if something breaks, I actually know where it broke and how to fix it. Whereas the Streams, you're better off just kind of restarting everything and resynchronizing. And then from a bigger perspective, from a strategic point, Golden Gate is getting all the development resources now instead of Streams. Once Oracle acquired Golden Gate, they basically stopped doing any new features and any enhancements into the Streams product. All the developers for it were moved over into Golden Gate. All the product management, all the people working on it were moved over to the Golden Gate environment. So from a strategic direction, Golden Gate is the way that Oracle is going to go. It doesn't mean that Streams is going to be taken out of the database or be supported. It just means that it won't get any new features. So as Oracle 12 comes out, Streams will not be able to support any of the new features in there. They'll be specifically turned off. Okay, getting back to some more questions. Let's see here. I want to make sure I didn't skip any. Does Golden Gate have a user interface, or is everything configured through HTML files? Everything's actually configured through text files. You can use HTML files, as I showed you, but for the most part it's done through just plain text files similar to your init.org files. We do have a GUI interface to configure Golden Gate. That's called Golden Gate Director, and that allows you to basically set up a source and a target environments, or what we call data sources, and then you can drag and drop like a capture component onto a data source or a database, and it will automatically bring up a nice little wizard that allows you to select which tables you're going to replicate, how you're going to store your trail files, what directory they go into, if you want to put any filtering conditions on it, and then you can drag and drop additional components into that environment, and it will build it up for you. And that's called Golden Gate Director. We also have another product called Golden Gate Monitor, which does all the monitoring for Golden Gate. And that'll install an agent on each system where Golden Gate is running, and it will monitor Golden Gate in a 24/7 unattended state. And it will pass information back to the monitor server where it's collected, and then you can log in at any time and see all the activity of Golden Gate, what's been going on and what's been occurring. And then you can also set up watches and alerts and pages. So if lag exceeds a certain threshold, it will automatically send out an email or an SNMP message to your main monitoring console. And those two products, Director and Monitor, are included within the Golden Gate Management Pack bundle. And then eventually we'll have an integration with OEM Grid Control itself, and you'll have a Golden Gate tab there that will allow you to monitor and configure Golden Gate from OEM. And that'll be coming out this summer. And that'll also be part of the management pack. Another question, can you explain the zero downtime upgrade? It looks high level using Golden Gate versus traditional upgrade. Yeah, we kind of ran out of time. We would like to explain that a little bit better. With a zero downtime upgrade, the way that it would work is on your we'll take instead of a Siebel environment, we'll take just an Oracle database, for example. On the source, I have Oracle 10G. And on the target system, I just have an empty system. Let's say that I wanted to upgrade to Oracle 11G. What I can do is I can take a hot backup of my Oracle 10G environment and move it over to my 11G system. If I can't take a hot backup, I can do RMAN, I can do import-export, transportable table spaces. Golden Gate even has its own way to move data across the system. But however way I build that environment on the target, if I did a hot backup, it's going to be Oracle 10G again. Well, as I'm building that environment, let's say that takes 5 days. Golden Gate's going to be running on the source system during that entire time. And it's going to be capturing all the activity that's occurring in all those tables and building up its trail files. Once I've completed the initial synchronization or that hot backup or whatever, I've got that database over there. Now if I wanted to upgrade it to 10G, I can. If I wanted to configure ASM or configure rack environments or modify the database any way, I can do that. Nobody's on that system. I have all the time that I need to do it, and I don't need to worry about it. And so once you've made those changes to that system, you then start up the Golden Gate apply process. And it's going to apply all the changes that have been occurring for the last couple of days or hours or however long it took to do that initial synchronization. Now there's going to be some duplicate records in there. So for example, if I started up Golden Gate at noon and I started my hot backup at 1 p.m., well, there's going to be at least an hour of overlap there that's being recovered as part of that hot backup. And so Golden Gate has a parameter called handle collisions that determines whether or not the record already exists in that target database, and if it does, ignore it, or apply it and create that new record in that target system. And that works for inserts, updates, and deletes. So now once I've got that complete, now I've got Oracle Golden Gate replicating from my source Oracle 10G environment to my target 11G environment. When I want to, I can now do testing on that 11G system. I can do some reports, make sure everything's running smoothly. At this time, I'll also set up reverse replication, going from 11G back to 10G, just in case I want to fail back or something goes wrong. Whenever I'm ready, like the next weekend or the next holiday, I switch my users from 10G to 11G. And now that's the entire downtime during the whole process. It's just the time it takes me to switch users from source to target. Once I've done that, they can keep using that target database. Now remember that we set up a reverse replication, so Golden Gate's replicating from 11G back to 10G. If something were to go wrong 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, I can always point my users back at the 10G system because it's going to have all the data current from production. And that way I've got a failover solution for zero downtime. I can fail back. So it really solves a lot of problems. Okay, more quotes. When is Golden Gate going to support the any data type? That's something we're looking into. It might be part of the Golden Gate 12C release, which is going to be out at the end of this year. So that should give you an idea. And we're working really hard to get it in there. It's not one of the release defining criteria, but it's something very high on our list. Next question is, can trigger replicate between MySQL and Oracle? Not sure what you're talking about. If we don't replicate DDL between MySQL and Oracle, if you're talking about if you have a trigger on a table in MySQL and it modifies the data, everything that Golden Gate gets is post-trigger event. So we get the data after the trigger is already fired. And so as we apply the data into Oracle, you'll see the actual result in the MySQL table, and Oracle tables are the same. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. Let's see. Okay, in active-active replication, if there is a conflict as data is being applied, how is it handled? In the current release of the product, it's a little bit tricky. You have to set up stored procedures within the database to handle the conflicts. With the next release of Golden Gate that's going to be out in a month or two, that's version 11.2, we're completely redoing the way we do conflict detection and resolution. And instead, it'll all be done through the parameter file itself. So you'll decide which columns to include in the where clause. We call that a conflict column. So for example, if I'm doing a timestamp-based conflict detection and resolution, then I'll include the primary key and then my update, my last updated date, or my created date column as my conflict columns. If we see an error there, then it'll automatically fire off what we call a resolution phase. And that resolution phase could be anything from overwrite the existing record or take the latest timestamp, take the oldest timestamp. You're given a lot of flexibility there on what you want to do, but it's all done through the parameter files. And so based upon your business rules, we just write that into the parameter file itself, and it'll work just fine. It's very similar to how Streams does it today. If the character set on the source and target are different, how does Golden Gate handle that? In Oracle to Oracle environments or anything to Oracle, it's handled very smoothly. We allow you to configure the NLS date format on the target side. You set it to whatever the source database was, and then Oracle automatically handles all the character set replication and character set differences. If you're replicating to something other than Oracle, then that support is coming out in the 11.2 release as well. And in that release, we'll have full support for multi-byte metadata and data within the trails. And so, for example, let's say if I'm replicating from Western European ISO 8 into UTF-8, that's never going to be a problem no matter which environments you're working with. But if you're going the opposite way from UTF-8 into Western European ISO 8, then there's going to be a lot of characters in the UTF-8 that don't exist and the Western European character set. And so that data will just come over as garbage right now. In the future, it'll be handled as an exception character set or as an escape character, and you'll be able to decide how that's replicated. Let's see. Can you set tags in Golden Gate for a session to stop replication? We can exclude replication or ignore replication based on an entire username or user ID, or we could exclude it directly by what we have. We have like a trace table. So if you insert a record into the trace table, everything until the next commit point is going to be ignored by Golden Gate. We don't yet have a tag interface like Streams does to ignore just a session or just a portion of data. But like I said, you can do it with by inserting a record into our trace table. In a Microsoft SharePoint system, which uses a SQL database, are we able to replicate that to an Oracle database? And the answer is yes. We actually have quite a few instances where we're taking specific applications that are designed to run only in one single database and replicating it to a different database. We've done it with SharePoint. There's an application called Base24, which is designed for ATM activity and point-of-sale activity for like brick-and-mortar shops, and we replicate those databases into Oracle all the time. We've got situations where we're replicating from SharePoint into Oracle, Oracle eBusiness Suite into SQL Server. So yeah, we do that quite a bit. Next question is, can you defer updates on the target system? So changes are happening on 24/7 on the source, and I want to basically freeze changes on the target so we can do our ETL work or do queries on a non-changing database. And the answer is yes. If you want to, you can actually put in a parameter to say stop the apply process at a specific point in time. So I can say stop it at 5 p.m., and that way you can do end of day queries or end of day activity, or you can stop it at midnight, or you can even stop it at a particular SCN. Or even when we have something called event actions, and event actions can also stop or pause the apply process. And the way that works is you can key it off of anything that you're replicating. So for example, let's say that I've got an end-of-day transaction in my source database. I can actually trigger off that end-of-day transaction as soon as I see it in the apply process. I'm going to pause or freeze replication. And so there's a number of ways that you can handle that. Does Golden Gate work with advanced security option in Oracle to replicate encrypted data? The answer is yes. We actually have direct access to the Oracle wallet, and once you use MKStore to create a key within that wallet, Golden Gate can replicate that data just fine. And that works for using transparent data encryption or tablespace encryption. Let's see, character sets may have larger size and target, may fail in some cases. How is Golden Gate handling that? That's really a configuration issue. Golden Gate doesn't handle that. If for some reason, I guess this most often comes up when you're using something like byte semantics versus character semantics. And in that case, for example, if I'm using byte semantics on a source, and I have a varchar2 that's 10 units long, it's going to be able to hold 10 bytes. On the target, if I'm using character length semantics and I say 10, then it's going to be able to hold 10 characters no matter how many bytes each of those characters contains. And so in that case, I'm going from smaller to larger, it's okay. But if I'm going from the reverse, larger to smaller, when we go to attempt to insert that record or update that record, you'll actually get the Oracle error. This is value too large for column. And then we'll give you the column name and the table that it occurs on so you can go and fix it.
So Nick, this is Brian Boyd from PTi. We're here and we're going to go over just a few more minutes. I think I saw 2 more questions, and you've been fielding these really great on chat. One, there was a question from Richard about what's the overhead of Golden Gate in a traditional environment on the database server. could you? I know you briefly mentioned it, and you may not want to put a number to it, but if you could put something about, is it 1%? Is it 2%? What's the overhead when Golden Gate's working?
Sure. Let me give you some kind of rules of thumb for Golden Gate around what we have for overhead. And the way that we look at overhead on a source is by the overall impact to the end user. And so the impact to the end user is going to be anywhere from 3 to 7%. So that means if it normally takes you 10 milliseconds to do a query, it's not going to take you 10.3 milliseconds or 10.7 milliseconds. Most end users aren't ever going to notice a difference at that level, so it's not really even an issue. You may notice it with massive batch jobs. So if you have a batch job that takes 10 hours, it's now going to take 10 hours and 5 minutes or 10 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
And then the other one, I think Weiss talked about this, but he mentioned that as we're pulling data out of the database and we're sending it across a network, the Golden Gate trails are much smaller than the actual redo log or archive log, and the Golden Gate trails are about 30 to 35% of the generated archive log. So that'll give you a good idea of what kind of network bandwidth is required. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think last question from Ryan Faith. He said, so we need one license for the source and another for the target. This means for a data warehousing setup, each source database will need a license. And that answer is correct. So, if you have a data warehouse and then you have it sourced out into 3 data marts, you need to get a license for each of those targets and sources across it. So we're going to wrap up. Again, I wanted to say thanks for everyone attending. Both Weiss and Nick, thanks for participating in this and putting this together. And again, we'll send a follow-up email to everyone that was set up on the landing pad. And if you wish to get a copy of the URL for the presentation, you can just email me at Brian, BRIAN.Boyd, BOYD, at predictive-technologiesplural.com. So thank you, everyone, for attending, and everyone have a fantastic day.
This concludes today's conference call. You may now disconnect.